Hello, and welcome to the first episode of the Chasing Joy podcast. Thank you so much for joining me here. Firstly, I'm your host, Joy, and this first episode is about getting to know the why behind chasing joy. My why is to discover what brings people happiness in their own unique way through vulnerable conversations. I want to do this because I genuinely revel in seeing other people's spark. And by spark, I mean the things that make people want to keep going, get out of bed, or just get out and escape, even for a moment, the tough times life likes to throw at us. And I know that in exploring this topic, it can lead us in answering some of life's biggest questions that make many of us feel lost, confused, and unfulfilled. At its core, Chasing Joy seeks answers to these foundational questions. What makes you happy? What excites you every day, and how do you find joy and fulfillment in what you do? Do you find joy through your daily work, interests, and hobbies? And how much time do you dedicate to that when we always feel like we never have enough time? How can we help each other to find and reconnect with our joys and passions? How can we use our expression and creativity to truthfully understand each other and leave the world better than we found it? Going back to the first question, what makes you happy? It is a simple yet layered question. It's been a question that has dwelled in my mind for a while, mainly because happiness looks and feels different for everyone. Sometimes this can be difficult to answer because this involves needing to know who you are outside of your titles and responsibilities, outside of who other people think you are, and it involves being what some may call selfish, because as much as you may love taking care of your loved ones and spending time with them, or how much you may love the work you do, finding the selfish answer is thinking outside of those boxes which are expected from us. Whether it's being someone's daughter, someone's son, a partner, a parent, a manager, an employee, those are boxes that are expected from us. And I also understand that thinking outside of these titles can be a privilege because it can feel like we never have enough time, and it's a precious and scarce resource. But I also think that should be the very reason as to why we make the effort to dedicate ourselves to something that is solely for our pure enjoyment. If time is a precious and scarce resource, what actually then deserves our attention? If we put in the effort and time to prioritize our hobbies, we are able to show up better in our relationships, our workplaces, and most importantly, as individuals in this world. And I think there's also a beauty in how diverse these interests, passions, and pursuits for happiness can be, whether you're into art, music, sport, fitness, fashion, or travel, whether you're into many interests or a select few, finding what makes you happy and acting on this also takes on the transformative role of self-reflection. This is because your specific interests highlight the parts of you that make you unique and special, and those parts are always worth taking a closer look at. The reason why I think diving deep into people's passions, particularly my own, such as starting this podcast, is because I believe that using these as our strengths really plays to our advantage. However, the problem lies when these are buried underneath the mountains of excuses, overloaded schedules, and the fear of the unknown if you were to actually follow through with those experiences. And I am mainly referring to myself when I say these. So before hitting record today, I fought many internal battles in my head as to why I shouldn't record and post my first episode yet, even though I thought of this whole Chasing Joy podcast idea last November. And it's been 8 months since then. So I definitely could have started much earlier, but I became dangerously familiarized with what I like to call the concept of once. The once concept is a form of procrastination that postpones your growth. You trick yourself into thinking that you can only achieve your goal by extension of another task, which is easily piled onto another task, creating a vicious cycle that feels like you're constantly chasing your own tail. And before this, I actually recorded 2 episodes with 2 friends, but it never got out because I wasn't satisfied with how it looked or sounded. I told myself, once I get my brand logo together, I will post. Or once I fix the audio quality, I will post. Or once I hire a studio and get the right equipment, I will post. And as you can imagine, these ever-moving goalposts drained me and moved me away from what I should actually be focusing on. So, where did this idea come from in the first place? The podcast idea came to me during the most difficult stage in my life with a lot of change and discomfort, and I was on the drive to work, and at the time I was working at a EV charging company as a project coordinator. It is a very niche role or a niche sort of market. However, I am still grateful for that experience, and it was a place that I had been considering quitting after my first year there, and I was due for a promotion because it was my 1 year anniversary there, but it wasn't something that I actually wanted because I felt like I had learned everything I wanted to learn from that place, and I was looking for something to challenge me more, but it also became a pretty toxic environment at one point, and it caused me a lot of stress, so I knew I had to get out of there and move on. So during this time, my dog of 11 years, Samson, had recently passed away, and this took a really big toll on me because I never experienced that sort of loss or grief. He was the longest pet I had ever owned, and it just felt like someone had snatched away one of the most precious things in life. So that was really taxing, and I also had health complications that really impacted my mental health at the time. This same stage, I knew that I was very close to finishing my degree at university, and I felt like I needed to pursue something else, but I also felt like I didn't have anything that made me feel competitive enough, and it felt like so many things were abnormal and all these factors just bundled together, and I swear it was like a quarter life crisis in the making. But on this particular drive to work, I was listening to one of my favorite podcasts called The Psychology of Our 20s, and the episode was called The Importance of Hobbies in our 20s. And Gemma, the host, explained all these amazing reasons as to why hobbies in this particular stage in our lives can really develop you in unimaginable ways, while also giving you permission to play and have fun amongst all the pressure to figure yourself out and get it together in this era. When she was giving ideas for hobbies to try, she mentioned starting a podcast, and for some reason this line stuck with me for the rest of the day and obviously until now. So when it came to the name Chasing Joy, to be totally honest, the name Chasing Joy came to me when I was journaling about this podcast and my ideas for it, and I never had any other name come up which I liked more, so I never second guessed it. So when I thought about the name Chasing Joy and what it means, it's not about the idea of happiness being something you need to constantly strive for and it feels unattainable. Chasing joy is about making the time and effort for the things that matter to us and make us feel the most ourselves in a world that can easily allow us to be strayed from that. It is about the continuous pursuit of making our passions and interests a priority, because doing so significantly improves our sense of well-being, personal development, purpose, and overall creates happier and healthier humans. So what do I want to get out of this, and what am I going through in this current stage of my life? So I just turned 24 years old last month in June, and I'm the type of person that always gets quite sentimental with birthdays, and I think about how I've grown in the past year. And when I was trying to think today about how I would describe myself to my audience, I feel like I am a person that always seeks to be better. I am always open to new things and I value novelty and experiences. But in saying that, I am also a person who is an overthinker. I overanalyze, and like most people, I am my own harshest critic. And as much as I try to fight it, I often feel like I'm not doing enough when in reality I am doing the most. I am also a person who is living in this in-between transition period. Recently, I finished my university double degree after 6 years, and I studied international studies and communication. After finishing, I am wanting a new challenge and am seeking a way to stimulate my brain outside of work, to dedicate myself to something outside of those obligations. This is a space for me to exercise my creativity because I know that those are the moments that make me the most fulfilled. I recently watched this YouTube video by Ali Abdal, who shares his thoughts about finding your purpose. He mentioned Anne Law's book called Tiny Experiments, which notes that to find your purpose, it requires you to embrace liminal spaces. So liminal spaces are an in-between space, and it is a time in your life where you're not quite sure what you should be doing next, and there are no clear rules, and there is no definition of success that you can follow. The automatic reaction when we find ourselves in liminal spaces is to cross it as quickly as possible, to get back on shore and get back to safety, because this uncertainty creates fear. Ali describes this as standing at the threshold, a doorway between who you were and who you are becoming. He says that rather than trying to rush into a decision, it is also totally okay to just stay and get comfortable in this very unknown stage. So figuring out what you actually want comes from those liminal spaces, and I think that is a really important message for people, especially our age, in our 20s, that you don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to always have this grand plan. It's okay to be uncertain. So a way that I want to exercise making the most use out of this liminal space is through this podcast. And the more I think about it, the more I feel like it is something that really resonates with me. Throughout my life, I have always had an interest in creative pursuits. When I was younger, I was into drawing, and in high school, I pushed myself with 2 major works, which were in textiles and visual arts. And till this day, they are 2 pieces I am so proud of. Maybe I'll make even a couple episodes on that alone. But anyway, I also love making travel vlogs on family holidays and solo trips. I love writing, journaling, and now with starting this podcast, this is my way of being okay at being bad at something, which usually I'm not that comfortable with. So I'm really excited to start this journey. So what can you expect when you are listening to the Chasing Joy podcast? Well, I know that in sharing these experiences, whether it's my own or those of my guests that I will have on these episodes, this will grant me tremendous internal growth and also fighting the fear of what others may think and what I think of myself. It is also a way to prove to myself that I can follow through, and with this, I am a sole believer in life being a continuous learning journey. The learning never stops, and I want to carry these lessons with me in every episode, every conversation, every thought and action that I pour into this podcast. And I hope that this may even inspire you to chase your joys. I hope that we can celebrate the wins together, but above all, I want this to be a safe space for us to talk about what truly matters to you. Thank you so much for listening, and I will catch you in the next episode. Bye.